In a 300-year-old cottage in France, because my husband, when he watches the Tour de France, he always comments about the buildings and how awesome it must be to see those buildings and to, and to experience them. And there are you living in this 300-year-old cottage. How did you what is your journey to getting you to France?
Okay, so going back, at least 10 years ago, our oldest daughter at the time was really, really sick. And while we were waiting for hospital things, like this is how I discovered bioresonance as well. But because she was so poorly and we needed to change her environment, we went to France every year. My dad had a house in France. We decided that we'd actually move to France because it would take her away from all the technology that was surrounding her because of where we live, not far from London. We were on the edge. And to give her a better quality of life, or give both of the girls a better quality of life, to take them away from that, to give them the countryside. So we decided we'd come and have a look. We found a house, which is not the house we're in now. And so we decided, we'd give it a go and we'd move country. So that's what we did. And then, just a long story short, she decided once they got, another 10 years down the line, decided to go back to the UK. And then her youngest daughter got a virus and got really, really poorly. But because of Brexit and all the things that were going on, we couldn't get the support that she needed. So we went back to the UK, still leaving our house here. So then we decided a year and a half ago we'd come back. But we had the neighbour from hell that lived next door.
Oh.
So we put our house on the market, didn't know where we were going, and we just drove around looking and looking and looking. And then we discovered this house, which is 300 years old. When we found it on the Napoleonic map.
Oh, wow.
Of what it really looked like. I'll tell you this, though. It's not always good living in a 300-year-old house.
I'm sure it comes with its challenges.
Needs a lot of work. One day, it will look good. It will feel good to be in a 300-year-old house. It needs a lot of work. But to sit here like now, I know we can hear somebody cutting the grass, but normally all you can hear is the birds singing, and it is beautiful. Yes. It's in a fantastic setting. In fact, although this is where the resistance used to hide in the woods. Here.
Oh, wow.
They were invaded here by the Germans. They got to here. And so there's a lot of history that goes around with the town as well, which we're gradually finding out things. So there's an awful lot of history that's attached to it as well. But it is a beautiful house. It's got a lot of character, but needs a lot of work.
A lot of tender, loving care.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. You should actually share some pictures with us one day, because I know every time that we talk, I can hear the birds singing in the background.
Yeah.
And I always think it must be so amazing, because before I left corporate, that was one of the things that I knew I wanted in my life, is to hear birds sing.
Yeah, and that's
so when I hear
my office out here for that reason,
It's absolutely awesome. Well, hopefully you're going to share lots of photos with us one day so we can see your awesome environment that you're living in. But now let's get to the interesting bit. What is bioresonance? Tell me about that.
Okay, so the easiest way to explain bioresonance is a frequency. So now when you go out in the sun, we all know, we go out in the sun, we start to skin color starts to change, but also we all know that we get vitamin D from it. So, and that happens because the sun creates a pigment change and it creates a chemical reaction within the body. The waves that come down from the sun are called Schumann waves. So these are natural waves that come and they hit our body. So with bioresonance, we use the type that I do, according to Paul Schmidt, we use that wave to piggyback. So when we apply frequencies to the body, they're put onto a sinus wave. So they're gentle and they're natural for the body and they can't do any harm. And that's how the body absorbs them.
Oh, wow.
So the easiest way to explain how that works in the body is like, do you remember using tuning forks at school?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so if you've got two the same and you hit one and you bring the other one in, they're going to start to resonate the same. If you had one that wasn't the same, nothing happens. Yeah, this one just doesn't do anything.
Mm.
So when we apply the frequency, it's like you're looking for that tuning fork that matches. And then when it does, it brings it into harmony. And so when the body's playing, if you like, the right tune, then it will start to deal with all the problems that are going on in there. And so the body then has got the right, it's got the support, the ability to then do what it should be doing in the first place.
Okay. Oh, that is super awesome. Now, what methods do you use to find out the body, how the body is resonating?
Okay, so what we would do, we'll look at endogenous substances. So generally, because of COVID now, we use urine. We're live. just walk through my live picture, you know. Well, there you are, everybody.
Okay.
It's live. Oh, dear, I love it. So we look at things like endogenous substances. So we're looking at urine, saliva, and even your stool and blood. We can tell from those different areas if we're trying to look at different things. But generally, urine and saliva will cover anything anyway. And so when I apply that, I have it into a little vial, and then I put that into my machine, and then I test it. So then I go through every system of the body, every bacteria, virus, parasites, fungi. We look for all of that. We then are looking at things like your vitamins, your minerals, etc. They came out that way. Yeah, you know.
We are solopreneurs working from home. It's okay.
Exactly.
It just adds that little character to our videos.
You know? And so from that, you can really get a lot of information and details. But we then look at the energies. We look at the environmental issues that are going on. So we can tell if there's like water veins and things like that affecting the body. We'll look at things like electropollution, if that's having an impact, dirty electricity, all of those kinds of things. We can tell from that little tiny sample.
So I'm assuming you say if you can use the blood as well, I'm assuming that they will have to go for a blood test, or is it something that you can perform?
No, I don't tend to use the blood because of that reason. Okay. But it is something that can be done. Obviously, generally, it would be putting it into a little vial. So I tend to stay away from that, just purely because of not having those facilities. Like if somebody is a doctor, then they maybe would use that way of doing it.
Okay. So what triggered you? What lit the passion in you to get involved in bioresonance?
So going back, you remember in the beginning, I said about our oldest daughter being really, really sick. Yes. And at that time, I didn't do healthcare, didn't do anything to do with healthcare. But a friend of mine told me of somebody who did bioresonance. So in England, it takes at least 6 months to get to the doctors, or to get to the hospital. So we were waiting for that because she was very, very poorly. We'd had this test done and I'd got the results. So we'll give this a go. I was quite intrigued by the results. I'd had one myself done and was like, oh, that's interesting. She picked up on things that I'd gone to doctors for years and they'd just gone, I think, just ignore it. And so because of that, we then had her done, and then we had that test. By the time we got the results from the hospital, they were like, wow, this is interesting, because they picked up on things that the hospital was saying, well, if we had this and if we had that, we would know it was this blood disorder. And she had inflammation in the bone marrow and lots of things that were going on, which really tallied in with what the bioresonance was telling us. And so we started the bioresonance treatment and she got better without having to go to the hospital. So we'd seen the hospital consultants and they'd done loads and loads of blood tests. At the time, they couldn't find this one thing, but we think it was because we'd started the bioresonance, they couldn't find this one thing to say what it was. But looking back, from what I know now, I think we would have been looking at things like leukemia, that type of thing. but it took us a few years because obviously I was learning as I was going along.
Yes.
And it just fascinated me how it worked, and to see her change from being this really poorly little girl to back to normal health, just by applying the frequencies to the body, and obviously eating healthily and all of those things, changing her environment, because when she got sick, we noticed that new mobile phone mast had gone up. The little girl, about 4 doors long, lost all her hair. Another lady, a couple of doors long, ended up with breast cancer. And another friend, the opposite side of this mobile phone mast, he got sick as well, and he moved in as we left, and he's got leukemia. So there was lots of connections to me, and it's known that, you know, you can get clusters around these things. So after our research, that's why we decided to move to France. But because we saw the impact it was having on her health, because her bedroom backed onto it. But applying the bioresonance and seeing those changes was incredible. And then the more you heard about others that had tried it and friends that have tried it, was just that was it. And I started working with friends, and then they just kept saying to me, why don't you do it as business? And I'm like, I don't know, don't feel confident enough. And then eventually I said, okay, I went and did my anatomy and physiology, and then just went and did as much training as possible.
Yes.
That then I got to a point that was like, okay, yeah, now I think I've got enough knowledge, you know, to do these things. It's your turn now.
Sorry. Okay, it's on silent now. Sorry.
Oh, dear.
And I did make a mental note to put your phone on silent, and I completely forgot about it. Sorry about that.
Well,
again,
the phone and the husband, I mean, you know.
this is how we roll. Hey, we now have.
Maybe there's a reason for it not being live straight away.
You can cut this piece out now. Oh heavens, that's funny. But you know what? I've actually seen some people that actually leave incidences like that and leave them in.
Yeah.
Emma, in her group the other day, the son popped in while she was on live as well. And the son just stormed in. And she said, at least he's dressed this time, because the previous time when she was live, he stormed into the room and he was naked. And she had to like...
Well, at least the husband didn't do that bit.
So, you know, it's kind of normal. It's authentic.
Yeah.
We're not putting on a show. We're doing the live thing here. Oh, Jackie, that is absolutely awesome, and I'm really happy to hear that how your daughter got how her life improved from the bioresonance. Is there any medication involved that they have to take while they undergoing your bioresonance treatment?
Okay, so you can do, and it's not actually a medication in the sense of, you know, like you get the tissue salts or the homeopathic tablets. So we can put those frequencies into those, and they can take those, and so they're like getting a mini treatment of being on the machine. And then we will look at things that we would recommend, natural things that would support the body, and then obviously then, you know, it's up to the person to decide whether that's what they would like to try along with it. So sometimes we might look at herbal remedies, we might look at essential oils, things that would help and support in addition to what we're doing, because sometimes you need, so if vitamins and minerals are deficient, however many frequencies I apply, yes, they'll help balance it, but they can only balance what's in the body. So we need to add more to it. So those sort of things that are where people need additional support. Or if somebody's got something like Lyme's and things like that, then there are certain things that we need additional support for. So they're the sort of things we would recommend, but they would always be a natural product.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, because I am not a person to take pharmaceutical medication. It's not my favorite thing to do.
No.
And so yes, that's quite nice to hear, because but if there's anybody like me out there, I don't drink tablets. I usually have to, my head must be throbbing and really having its own drum beat going before I'll take something for a headache. So yes, that's awesome if there's no pharmaceuticals involved. Not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I personally just don't like.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't like it.
They've got their place, haven't they? But it's, you know, there's so much we can do to support ourselves without having to have all of these things as the first call. You know, because some people got a headache, take a tablet.
Yes.
But actually, you know, things like peppermint, you can just put on here that will help with a headache. yes, I know sometimes we might have severe headaches and migraines and things like that, but there's lots of things that we can change.
Mm.
And even diet is really involved in things like that as well, and
Okay.
stress and all of those things that we talk about.
Awesome. I was going to ask about, so when you go into this bioresonance treatment, I am assuming that you'll have to make some dietary changes as well.
Depends on what it is. Yeah, depending on what we find.
Okay.
So some people, yes, and some people, no. Because I also test as food intolerance as a total separate issue. So if somebody's got skin complaints or digestive issues, then yes, we would be looking at food to change that. And even if somebody maybe has got a heart condition, then we would be looking at diet is a great way to support your heart. So we might be looking at it in that way. But there are cases, say somebody's got Lyme's or other diseases, then we would be maybe looking at more of an energetic change, unless there was something specifically that stood out that said, well, really, you need to consider. We would suggest eating healthily and those sort of things, but it would only be if maybe intolerances, skin issues, digestive issues, that then we'd go down looking down the food route.
Okay. Just not wanting to have a proper diagnosis, because obviously I'm quite far away from you now, but I have changed my eating habits a long time ago already. I'm not a big bread eater. I know that must be an insult to the French that love bread, but I'm not a big bread eater. I have cut out, I don't buy margarine, I only buy butter. When I cook in oil, I only use proper, decent oils, but we don't have deep fried food or anything like that. Yeah. The only times we do that is maybe once every 3 weeks, even if that much, that we will have some chips deep fried. So we don't, so as a rule, I don't even eat rice. So we've done all of those changes, and I do not like exercising. But even with all those changes that I've done, I've even stopped drinking sugar in my coffee. I still have not seen any changes in my weight.
That's interesting.
Yeah, what would the assessment be if you think of all the experience that you've got now? What comes to mind?
So for me, first of all, I'd look at, have you really stopped eating wheat?
Yes, I think so.
Because you'll be amazed what else it is in. Because gluten, if you have a mouth of bread, they reckon gluten stays in the body for 3 months. And wheat has been genetically modified since the 1950s.
Oh,
and that can affect us. So things like wheat, I would consider what else it's in. Sweet corn is another one that is genetically modified. And what happens is the stomach can't break it down. So making sure things are actually organic, and they are actually what they say they are, because these chemicals that they use as well can affect our digestive system. And the other thing I would consider is plant-based for losing weight. You're doing really well with a lot what you do, but it's probably just a few tweaks that need to help. And wheat is the biggest issue. Definitely is one of the biggest issue. And then obviously, like everybody's going to say, and it's the same for me, although we don't like exercise, it's still quite important that we burn enough calories. And because we're now sitting at our desks working all day, we're not doing, whereas when you're in the office, you get up and you're moving to this office, you go and get that. When you're at home, that's much harder to do. And that's something I've noticed with myself, that it's something that you need to be conscious of and make more of an effort to do, to take yourself for that little walk in between sessions and things that we're doing, is to add that into our diet. And the other thing is eating, you know, fruit and things like that. Yes, sugar is again something that's really bad, especially refined sugars. So if you need a sweetener, then replace it with something that's natural, like the stevias and the algarves and those type of sugars, rather than white sugar. Because anything that's generally white, like wheat, is bleached. So then when you think about that, no wonder we have all these digestive issues, you know, with it. They bleach the flour to make it that colour. And then you've got the genetics that they all muck about with, and they've changed. All have an impact on the digestive system. So if we can get the digestive system right, then all of our health issues can change. Between that and stress, obviously, as we talked about earlier, didn't we? It's one of the hugest, biggest impacts that it can have on your health.
Look, I generally feel healthy. I'm not, I get my moments where if I've really spent mega hours behind the computer, I will get tired, the kind of normal thing. But other than that, I'm healthy. I don't get sick. I'm on, like I've said, I'm on no medication, where I know some people that I know, they've got to have this in the morning, this in the afternoon, that at night time. Otherwise, they just cannot function. So I don't have any of those, but I just know that I am far heavier than what I used to be.
Yeah. Yes.
And even with changing my eating habits, but I must say, when I hear plant-based, I get very worried because I do love a juicy steak.
You see. Now, I would have said that to you 2 years ago. I've been doing plant-based for a year now, my hubby struggles, but we haven't had meat for a year and a half.
Oh no.
And actually, if you watch things like Game Changer, I don't know if you've seen that, and if
I haven't.
Seaconspiracy, there's also a beef conspiracy as well. When you watch those, they make your mind up. Game Changer was interesting though. They used the China study, which is plant-based, and they did research on athletes, and actually because everybody says, oh, if you don't eat meat, you won't be as strong, you won't be as fit.
For the protein.
They were actually more, is that the right word? They were much more fitter doing plant-based than they were on a meat diet. And they showed you firemen that had heart conditions, how they reverse heart conditions by getting them not to. And they were like, whoa, no, this is not going to happen. They got them doing it. It's really worth watching, because you suddenly realise, actually, when we think eating plant-based is not healthy, actually it's the opposite. It really is good for you. But obviously, again, it's one of those things, you've got to get the balance right. I just get scared. I just get scared when I hear plant-based. Like, no. They can't need away from me. No. When you've watched, come back to me. We'll have that discussion when you've watched those programs.
I will go and watch them and probably phone you and go, Jackie, I'm in trouble. I need to leave my meat behind now, or something like that.
I'll tell you what, when I watched them, we both looked at you and went, well, I'm not eating meat anymore.
Well, I'll go and try, and I'll let you know what the verdict was.
Okay? You don't like it.
Okay, you've mentioned something, and I just need to touch on that. You talked about Paul Schmidt.
Yes.
Tell me about him.
Okay, so Paul Schmidt was the inventor of the bioresonance machine that I use. And the reason why we talk about him is because he designed this machine because they used to be massive, and he worked for NASA, and they wanted to then design this machine so that it could be made small enough for us, so we could use it. He wanted everyday people to be able to use it, this professor. So he worked along with that. He lived, obviously he's German, and he wanted to give the everyday. So this company that he founded is Rayonex, is his company, well, was his company, and his son took it over. So it's a family-oriented company, and the aim of their machine is there are no side effects. And to this day, they've never had any side effects.
Oh, that is awesome.
And it is the only bioresonance machine in the world that's passed all the new medical laws.
Oh.
So it uses sinus waves. Others use different types of waves and different types of frequencies, and they can cause harm in the body. So with the one we use energetic testing. So it's quantum physics. So it's based on probability. But within that, you can pick up things before they happen or after they happen. So you can look at what's going on. And obviously, it won't be the same as having a blood test. It's not going to give you necessarily the same results, because that's done under a microscope. And this is like, well, depending on what the frequency tells us, the strength of that frequency tells us how intense or not intense that is. Or it may be where, if we start now, we're picking that up, well, actually, if you carry on in that path, you may end up with this condition or that condition. So it's not a diagnostics in the sense of like a blood test is, but it gives us good indications of what's going on in the body, because everything leaves a pattern in the body. But yeah, and it's also set parameters so that we, as practitioners, we can't do any damage. So it's set, whereas other machines can cause issues. And even funny enough, recently we were told about a doctor that's actually ended up in prison because of it, because we can't make those claims that we can do all of these things. And that's why we really emphasize the fact of Paul Schmidt, because his is very different from other bioresonances that we see. And his ethos behind it as well is about finding that root cause. But at the same time, the whole company has been kept as a family-based company. So I like that it's not gone to, because even China wanted to buy them out. They were like, no, you know, as they goes technology, you know.
Big corporate.
Yeah, and you've seen it grow from that over, I think it's about just over 40 years old now. And yeah, and even if you go out to Germany, they've got pyramids. The offices are all pyramid shaped because of the shape that they create. And talking about energies and environment, and the shape that creates inside there is actually really restful. So you might be on the computer all day, but you don't have those issues we have. It's the computer that makes you tired, like you were saying at the end of the day, and it's the Wi-Fi and all the things that come off, and they research all of that. So yeah, and that's why it's important we use this name. That's why we always talk about bioresonance according to him, because of it being that different. But an amazing man.
Yes. So if somebody now comes to you and they want to buy your services for the therapy, is there a set amount of sessions that they will have to undergo, or is it based on what their conditions are? How does that part work?
Okay, so initially, obviously, you have your test, and then depending on really what's wrong with them, if it's a child, for example, a couple of sessions and it could be resolved, because children respond so quickly. And if it's to think of it this way, if you've had whatever the problem is for a long time, it's not going to be an overnight session. It's going to take a little while to balance it out. Some things can be done over a set period of time, but generally we have to watch and see what happens. But let me put it this way, if you're still coming to me years later other than for a checkup, then I'm doing my job wrong.
Okay.
You should, you know, if we said maybe 6 months to a year, you should be seeing, if it's a major problem, you should be seeing it changes. If it's something very, very serious, then we might just be supporting you through that. So then that's where it changes. If it's something like, you know, you may have somebody who's got cellular issues, then we will be looking at how can we support and keep their immune system supported in between their other treatments that they're having done, and helping them to cope with all of those side effects. So that can be a bit more long term. But your general, you know, things, general ailments, 2 or 3, probably 3 more, maybe 3 or 4, you would be seeing as then you would notice improvements, and then you know, awesome. And then gradually the treatment length gets longer as well. You know, you might be coming in once a year just to have a checkup, or, you know, I mean, for a long time I had a client that had adult leukemia, and initially we started off seeing them every 3 months, then it was 6 months, and now it's just whenever they feel they need a checkup. So, you know, once we get it going, it changes as you go along.
On that then, so that means if somebody comes to you and say that they have been diagnosed with cancer, can your bioresonance assist them to not go for chemo? Or is that too dangerous ground to tread on?
Too dangerous ground to tread on.
Okay, cool.
Let's say we can support the body with the immune system.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, one final question. What is the main thing that people misunderstand about bioresonance? What is the thing that, you know, what are they confusing it with? What are they saying, no, it can't work because of? So what is the big misunderstanding when it comes to bioresonance?
I think the biggest one for me is that my type of bioresonance uses electricity, and it doesn't. So there's no, you don't feel anything. It's not like you're going to get electric impulses or anything like that. What else do people notice? I think it's just, I suppose the other biggest issue, they just don't understand how it works. And that is one of the hardest things to explain. But when we think about sunlight and how that works, I think we don't worry about how the sun gets from there to there. We just know that it does.
Yeah.
We know that creates a reaction. And that's the same principle with the bioresonance that I use, because it uses that sinus wave. I would say they're probably, for me, the biggest obstacles to get across. And obviously, lots of things we are not allowed to talk about.
Yes.
Because of, we're not allowed to give people that. Well, I think it covers with everything we talk about today, not just me, in health in general. We have to be really, really careful what we say. It's not to say it doesn't do it. So sometimes maybe the terminology we use, it's good to think outside the box for that reason. And we've lost Leonie.
Am I back yet?
Oh, yeah, she's back. Oh, we did have to have a bit of South Africa stop, didn't we? I mean, come on. We couldn't miss that.
It tells me now that my internet connection is
unstable.
Oh, no.
Trying to say.
Oh, no. Okay, before we fall off, how can people get hold of you? How can they contact you?
So for me, if you look up bioresonatent.com, that's my website. But obviously, if you're in the group, just send me a message, and we can jump onto a Zoom call like we've done today, and we can chat and see if there's any way in which we can help.
Yeah. And would you pop your email address maybe in the bottom of the comments after we've done here, so people can get hold of you very quickly?
Yeah, and that would be.
Yeah. Jackie, this was very interesting. I mean, I don't know anything about bioresonance, and when I saw this, I thought, no, I've got to find out what this is all about, because we suffer with so many things. And my husband and myself were talking about it recently. Something completely stupid. I say because we've got a dog, and on certain dog food or kibble, it just doesn't work for him. We've got to change his kibble around. So I said to Graham, I said to him, you know what? When God made dogs, he did not have a dog food factory. They ate whatever was available. Now we're putting this human mixture of something together, compressed into a cube, and we're feeding them that. There must be something wrong with that picture. But we do it to ourselves as well. Like when you said sweet corn, I never realized sweet corn has been genetically changed, because I love sweet corn. Okay, I don't eat it regularly.
Yeah.
But if there's sweet corn going, I will definitely have some. So when you now said it was genetically enhanced, I'm like, oh heck, I better go check what else I've been eating that has been genetically enhanced. Yes, I know that
people don't realize that. I know we talk about it, but they don't realize that actually some of that in our food chain is GMO food.
Yes.
But it's like with the dog, isn't it? If you think about it, a lot of people talk about dogs eating raw dog food.
Yeah.
And when if you think about the dog, what they're going to get, cereal. So we just talked about genetically modified. And they get all the not the very nice stuff shoved into all their food. So sometimes, maybe we do need to think about those things as well. But bioresonance works on animals as well.
Yes.
By the way.
Oh wow.
And,
wow.
That's one of the things they started a lot with. Has incredible results, because unlike a human, there's no one to say, oh, that didn't work. They're like placebo, because you can see that they're a real perfect, situation to use, and huge in the veterinary field in Germany. Absolutely huge.
Wow.
And they use them on like pig farming, and so they don't have any antibiotics or any medication. They program their water. The pigs then drink the water, and that's how they get their treatment.
Oh, that is awesome. So that's a whole new thinking for me that's now opened up again today, because we just don't know of all these things.
Yeah.
I mean, I never knew about bioresonance until I met you.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck is bioresonance?
Yeah.
But it makes a lot of sense what you said now. And yeah, I'm very excited about the fact that I also know now what bioresonance is.
It's also a name that's not easy to understand. You know, what does that mean?
Yes, because that's one of the other buzzwords floating around now, that if it doesn't resonate with you, you don't have to do it. And so when I heard bioresonance, I'm like, okay, what is this new buzzword going around here?
Yeah, because resonance, when we talk about everything in life, gives off a frequency or a resonance.
Yes.
And that's why sometimes people can say about different stones can have a good benefit to them, because certain ones give off certain frequencies, which actually enhance the body and help. You know, there are ones that will help block e-smog, for example, and things like that. You know, so it's a vast field. So we could talk forever.
Awesome. We better have another conversation like this soon.
Yeah, we should.
We'll tackle the next level.
Don't get the husband and the phones.
Yes, we'll make sure that we have them at bay that day.
Yeah.
Jackie, it was awesome talking to you.
And
yes, I'm looking forward to watching the video again, because although I've learned quite a bit, I'm sure there's stuff that I've missed already. So I would love to watch it again. So when it's ready, please tag me in your go live that I can see, or in your video that I can see it, watch it again. Okay.
Thanks ever so much, Leonie. It's been really, and it's a great way to do it, isn't it?
Yes.
I look forward to doing yours.
Yes, I shall be. I am writing my bio at the moment. I've got to write my brag post, because somebody else also asked me, I want your brag post. I'm like, no, I'll get somebody to write it. No, you're supposed to write it yourself. So I'm busy writing my bio, okay? And then I'll send it through to you.
Before we stop then, Leonie, obviously just tell everybody a little bit about what you do, just as a brief, and they'll have that to look forward to.
Okay, so do you want my 30-second elevator speech, or do you want
go on then, why not?
The 2-minute one? Well, I'm a certified life coach. I have this firm belief, and I'm passionate about developing people so they can reach their full potential. I believe that, you know, there's things in life that actually trip us up for no reason whatsoever. And once you get that belief out of the way, you can go to greater heights. So my group is actually called Smash Your Limiting Beliefs. And somebody asked me the other day, why smash? I said, because I'm not a gentle person when it comes to things like this. I smash them out the way. They don't belong there. They need to go. So yes, I'm a certified life coach, and I help people when they're ready to move the needle on their limiting beliefs. I'm there to guide them on the journey, to help them smash everything out of the way and live life to their fullest potential. That's me.
Excellent. And we're gonna have Leonie. We're going to be talking next week in her group, but hopefully we can share that with you as well, because I think you've got an awful lot to learn from Leonie as well.
Thanks.
So thanks ever so much, Leonie.
Thanks, and I'll see you again soon, Jackie.
Yeah, take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.